Miss your favorite show? Download the podcast at kcaaradio.com.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
Welcome, friends. You are tuned to KCAA Radio in Redlands, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. By the way, you can follow this show on Facebook at Viewpoint with Father John, and come join our new community. This is really a loving environment to come to. We are still working on the website, so keep checking in at www.viewpointwithfatherjohn, that's all one word, .com. And if you want to call in during the third segment of this hour, you can talk to me at area code 909-792-5222. Again, that's area code 909-792-5222 or 909-792-KCAA. And welcome to everyone who's listening. This is Thursday, and you know, our message here is all of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I am on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinity and their potential. Disposing of false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And tonight we have a very interesting show. I have a guest coming up in the second part of the hour, my good friend Alex Donovan. I'll tell you a little bit about her later. This is the first week of Lent. Now, that's not just something you get out of your dryer. That is an actual religious holiday. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday, and I get asked this from a lot of people who are not familiar with, why do we put ashes on our forehead? Is it just a great fashion statement? Is it better than wearing makeup? My son put some stuff on Facebook that I told him that he should take down right away about all the different designs we do with the ashes, and you can tell a lot about the priest by how he made the cross on your forehead. Or if you did a lightning bolt, you know you're in trouble. But the reason we put the ashes on our forehead is just to remind us, as we're told in the Bible, we come from ash, from dust to dust, ashes to ashes, and that's where we return. So it's symbolic to kind of remind us of our humanity. But we have another tradition with Lent, and that's to give up something that's important to us. Now, some people like to give up chocolate. Some people don't eat meat on Fridays. Personally, I've been tortured all my life as an Orthodox Catholic that I hate fish. Nothing personal to my mackerel snappers out there, but I'll have a McDonald's fish sandwich because I know it's not real fish in there. It's the best I can do. I hate to tell you that. But if you really want to give up something of meaning for Lent, here's a few suggestions. How about giving up a resentment? How about giving up the need to be right? How about forgiving somebody that you think is unforgivable? How about letting go of something that you have been embarrassed about for years and years and give that up to God? Now that's something that really means something. That's a real sacrifice. For some people, if they can give up being right for a few minutes, I'll tell you, that's better than a full rosary or a novena, 9 days of rosary. It's a good thing to do. So the idea of Lent is we're preparing ourselves for the death and resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. Not just the death, the resurrection. Otherwise, the crucifixion means nothing. It's nothing without the resurrection. And keep in mind, Jesus didn't come to change God's mind about us. Jesus came to change our mind about God, because we've had this idea that somehow God wanted these huge sacrifices and that, all these bad things were happening. He had this checklist and he checked it twice to see if we're naughty or nice. And so we really had kind of a Santa Claus vision of God and kind of a mean vision of God, and Jesus came to change all that. So during this time of Lent, this time of change, maybe a good way to prepare for it is to look at some of the old ideas that aren't working anymore and get ready to have a new vision. Let something new happen in your life where you might say, okay, well, maybe God's different than I thought God might be. I can remember in my early days trying to make my discovery with God. And I was on retreat at a place called Manresa. It was in Azusa, California, and it was ran by the Jesuits. And I was really struggling. And a very wise priest said to me, try this prayer for 30 days. And I think I talked about this a little bit last week. Every day, just say, God, reveal yourself to me in my life in a way that I will understand, and then pay attention. And I started doing that. And I started noticing more things in nature. I started hearing more things when people were talking to me and sharing their experiences with me. And what my discovery was, and I can't tell you what yours will be, I could just share my experience, was that I found a very loving concept of God that wasn't out to get me, but instead was out to help me discover my unity with this God. And that what I had been looking for, I've been looking with for a long time. Now, tonight we also have some very heavy stuff that we got to talk about. And, I debated all day about this, but, this show's about being real. This show is not just about, giving you a bunch of stuff that makes you feel good. And don't get me wrong, I want you to feel good. But I want to have a relationship with you where we're very real with one another. And we talk about very real things. And this week has been a tough week with some very real things that are very painful. And unfortunately, what's going to happen with these things is there's a certain part of our population that's going to try to turn it into either Republican or Democrat issue. And it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's a human issue. And so in case you don't know what I'm talking about the shooting that took place yesterday in Florida. And I don't know about you, but my heart's been ripped out ever since I heard this yesterday morning, it taking place. These are our children. They shouldn't have this be a commonplace thing. It shocked me to find out that so many schools are now doing drills for active shooter situations. What does that say to us? We didn't have to do that when I was a child. Now, this is one of those things where we were such good kids, we didn't need this stuff. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm saying we were a lot safer. We didn't have to be afraid of these things when we went to school. And now our children are having to be afraid about, going to school and coming home. And I'm sorry, metal detectors are not going to fix this. Backpack searches are not going to fix this. What's going to fix this is relationships. Relationships with people where people aren't afraid to talk to the teachers, where they're not afraid to talk to authorities, where they're not afraid to, say there's something wrong. And we're going to have to talk about some very real things, like what makes sense with guns. And I've never seen an organization have so much power as the NRA. If you look at the statistics, the polling, and this is really seems to be constant and consistent with almost every poll that's come out over the last several years, that 94% of people, 94%, want to have better background checks on buying guns. There's only 4% that are against it. But the 4% are the ones who are getting their way. Isn't that weird? That our politicians are worried about the 4% voting them out. And I'll tell you in a minute why they're so worried about that. Yet the other 94%, there's the other small percent that don't know how they feel about it. That's why there's a discrepancy in the numbers. But the reason that our people both on the Democratic and the Republican side are so afraid of getting kicked out of office if they do something about our problem with guns and making some rules, some laws that make sense, is because the NRA will do what's called primary them. For you that don't know what that means, is next time they go to run for office, they will get somebody to run against them and they will finance their entire campaign. Give you a little example, and I'm not trying to pull people from one side or the other, but this is just a glaring one, that Marco Rubio received over $3 million from the NRA after the last shooting. And I found it really telling this morning that not one time when the president made his speech to the nation, He talked about everything except for the word gun. He talked about mental illness. He talked about wanting our children to feel safe and that their needs are going to be taken care of. But not one time did the word gun come up in the speech. It was glaringly absent. And both sides are struggling with this. Now, here's something that's going to blow you away as well. When we're looking at the polls, 92% of Democrats and 70% of Republicans want to do away with AR-15s. That's a high number on both sides. When you look at 92% and 70%, so why won't Congress listen? We come together on this. This is not a left or right issue. This is a human issue. And both sides, the citizens are saying, look, we got to do something. This is not okay. Everybody who spoke on the television last night from that community are registered as Republicans, and every one of them were united about wanting to do something about this and have some good laws put into place. By the way, we did have a law that would have kept the gun out of this guy's hands, out of Mr. Cruz's hands, Nicholas Cruz. And when Donald Trump became president, our Congress rolled that law back and made it so that people with severe mental illness can get any gun they wanted. Now, can somebody please explain to me how that makes any sense at all? It really doesn't. And so we're united as a community that we want better laws. So what this says to me is we need to do some phone calls and some letters to the people that we have elected on both sides. Please do not turn this into a right or left issue. We're not talking about getting rid of all guns. But what do you need with an AR-15? And this kid had multiple high-capacity clips to put into these weapons. He could have gone on longer and longer. Thank goodness he stopped when he did. I'm glad that the schools had the training they did. Otherwise, many more people would have been killed. And I take my hat off to the teachers at this school. One of the coaches who put himself in between the students and the gunman, and he was killed. He literally gave his life heroically, and I'm lighting a candle for this guy. You know, he put it all on the line. He is a hero. And would he have had to have been that hero if we would have just done what we were supposed to do and do background checks and not let people who can't even handle their own finances have a gun? It wounds us all. And we need to stop playing this game because it's nobody wins here. And so let's come together as one community. And let's do something about all this. Let's tell our leaders, look, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. If you don't do this, you won't have to worry about the NRA primarying you. We're going to primary you, and we're going to put some people in office who will write these laws on both sides of the aisle. Because this is about the American safety and our citizens being safe, not what side of the aisle you sit on. And then the other thing I want to talk about real quickly, this time's going by real fast tonight, domestic violence. We had 2 people leave the White House this week who shouldn't have been there. The FBI said a long time ago that they were not cleared for to see secret material. They did not have a clearance, and somehow they were given clearance anyhow. That's not okay. I want to make it real clear. If you don't hear anything else I say, and if this is the last time you talk to me on this show, hear this real clear. Domestic violence is never, ever okay. And I couldn't say it strong enough. And, you know, if you're in a relationship and you're getting beat up, please get out. It doesn't get better. I beg of you to get some good help. And when we come back from the break, we're going to have a good friend of mine who's a wonderful person, a poet and a teacher, teaches poetry and leads retreats. And so we'll look for you on the other side of the break.
loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
This is Dick from Carpet Masters. Carpet Masters has been serving the Inland Empire for over 60 years. We are locally owned and operated by the Stevens family. We not only clean carpet and furniture, we clean many loose rugs, including Oriental rugs. Oriental rugs are cleaned in our modern facility where the fringes are cleaned by hand, then hung in our modern facility to dry. We do not use steam cleaning to clean your fine furniture. Furniture is cleaned by hand using the same absorption cleaning used in the White House. Some furniture we bring into our plant to clean properly. We normally use 2 men on each cleaning job using the extraction method. There is nothing that will clean carpet better for our customers. Our job is to clean properly with quality first. Google Carpet Masters San Bernardino and give us a call, or go to carpetmasterssocal.com.
Do you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS? Can't afford to pay? You're not alone. The slow economy has backed many Americans into a financial corner. Here's fantastic news. The Internal Revenue Service is now accepting reduced settlements from taxpayers in trouble. A government program is in place to relieve overburdened taxpayers. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative, and if you qualify, you can end all collections, settle your tax issue, and possibly reduce the amount you owe by thousands of dollars. A new taxpayer emergency helpline has been set up by Tax Mediation Services. Call the helpline now at 877-207-2077. See if you qualify to have all collections ended and to have your tax problems resolved for thousands less. If you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS that you cannot afford to pay, call now to see if you qualify for the Fresh Start Initiative. 877-207-2077. 877-207-2077. 877-207-2077.
And welcome back. You are tuned to KCAA Radio in Redlands, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with your host, Father John Reed. I'm really glad to be here tonight, and I'm very excited about our guest this evening. It's a good friend of mine. Alex Donovan is a writer, poetry instructor, speaker, and retreat facilitator. Alex grew up in the Los Angeles area, and currently lives in, as we say in my neighborhood, Azusa, California. Her husband is Mark, and her cat is Mickey, and I know both of them. I can say they're both fine people. She received a bachelor's degree in religious studies from Stanford University and her MFA in poetry from the Vermont College of Fine Arts. Alex helped start the San Gabriel Valley Motherless Daughters Support Group and loves talking to groups about grief and bereavement, writing to heal, and poetry as shamanic journey. She has led workshops and retreats for such groups as St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Pomona, which the priest there, Father Mark, is a good friend of mine, St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Monrovia, Westminster Presbyterian Church in Westlake Village, Still Point Center for Spiritual Direction in Encino and at Ghost Ranch, New Mexico, Motherless Daughters of the San Gabriel Valley, Forest Lawn Memorial, women's groups, youth groups, and more. She has also taught poetry classes for youth and adults at the Monrovia Community Center with California poets in schools. Alex is a chaplain in training at Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles, and she loves thinking about ways poetry and soul care intersect. She has been published in Ruminate Magazine with Perennies Foundation. I know I screwed that up. I'm sorry, Alex. And she is in President's Journal. My dyslexia is kicking in. She's going to get me at the end of the show. Spiritual Directors International, Selfish Zion, and others. She will serve as writer in residence for Fort Lyons Center for the Homeless in Colorado this summer of 2018. And now that I screwed up your entire resume there, I apologize, my dear friend. So much for our friendship there. I apologize. I am excited to have you on the show, and that's why I'm getting a little stuttered stepped here. You have so much talent, and I've had the privilege of getting to know you, and I think the world of you. I've even seen you work at retreats. How'd you get involved with poetry?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I hear you wonderfully.
Okay, great. I've always written poems. I was thinking about this earlier today. I remember my first poem was about a scorpion that I wrote in the 4th grade, and I still remember it. And my teacher accused my parents of writing it for me. I loved it so much that it was a hobby that I had that I've only recently allowed to be more of a vocation. And I was tuning into your section earlier about gun violence in America, and at times like this, poetry is the only place I know to turn, honestly, where we can really kind of process those things in a space that feels deep enough, human enough.
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, you're doing a lot of work with motherless daughters, and I know I've sent some people your way with some of the groups that you do, and they've come back and told me that it's really a healing experience. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my favorite thing in the world is to watch people discover their own creative voice. And poetry, the creativity in itself is healing. I think we are made to be creative, and we've lost that somewhere along the way. We convince ourselves that we're not. But more than that, poetry can create a safe space to focus on loss or any kind of emotional trauma that we need to deal with, whether it's forgiveness, unfinished business. One thing I like to do with my grief and bereavement groups, such as the Motherless Daughters group, is ask people to write about something small, something like an empty object in their house. It's a small task. It seems easy at first, and suddenly you're writing about this well of grief inside of you. But it gives people an inroad. It gives them a way to think about their grief in a way that's a little bit more manageable.
Well, one of the exercises that I use with people who particularly are dealing with grief is oftentimes I'll have them write a letter to the person who has died as a way of keeping the communications alive, because I truly do believe we live in a spiritual universe. Does any of your work involve some of that?
Sometimes, yeah. A lot of times what I'll have people do is start describing an object in the natural world, and then at some point I want you to bring in a specific you. So it's your mother, it's your husband, it's your child, someone that you've lost, and it brings in that direct address, but in a way that's connected to something going on in the outside world or something, a tangible object in the house. So it creates that kind of synthetic energy,
right,
where you're continuing to bring that person into your creative work and into your psyche.
Right. Well, one of my favorite authors going down those lines is Mary Oliver.
Oh, yeah.
Because she has a way of drawing relationships between things, even inanimate objects, as you talk about. Who are some of your favorite poets, and who inspires you?
Sure, yeah. Mary Oliver, of course. She's an easy answer because she is brilliant at taking the simplest object, a goldenrod or a vase with flowers, and if she stays with that image long enough, suddenly she's talking about the whole world of love and loss. So she's brilliant. Wendell Berry is another really good naturalist poet that I adore. He has a poem called The Peace of Wild Things that I turn to often. This is a question I get a lot. Who's my favorite poet? I could never tell you. I fall in love with every poem I read.
That's good.
Yeah. One of my mentors, Betsy Scholl, is a poet that I followed to Vermont College of Fine Arts, and she is someone that I have a more personal relationship with, but she also does a brilliant job of connecting soulfulness with just everyday life. Her poems are full of music.
Well, I was on a retreat, I think it was last year with Still Point. It was just a one-day deal, and you were doing writing exercises. And unfortunately, I was doing the labyrinth while you were doing yours, but the response I heard from so many people of the depth that you took them to in their spiritual journey with the writing. Do you remember some of what you did with them?
Yeah, good question. That one, I think one activity that I like a lot is I have people generate a random list of body of water, a natural phenomenon, a piece of furniture, something or someone you've lost, a place from your childhood, a synonym for dark. And so their brains create this list quickly. You don't not much time to think about it. And then I give them 5 minutes to turn it all into a poem. What's magical is that our brains are meaning makers. So kind of like we create, when we see constellations, we see patterns in the stars, our brains will automatically start to connect those. And the question for me is always, did our brain also know maybe what we wanted to write a little bit, so that list we generated was paving the way for us to come up with some kind of poem. And the poems that people came up with were astounding. That you would never have known this was a forced exercise. It's just amazing what's already in us.
Yes. Well, I've, and this is just a point of view from a guy who's an amateur poetry lover, but it seems that some poems can actually be a form of prayer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Let me see. I have it. There's a poem by Betsy. I've got it right here. Betsy Scholl, the poet I was talking about in Maine. She was the poet laureate of Maine. It's called Orthon.
Okay.
Let me read it for you real quick, because that just means prayer. Let me give back to God his jacket, his locket, his thin slippers, sun glint, fleet fit stars. And here's my cracked, my sullen, unstrung guitar, hung like a rabbit in the butcher's window, a hole in the belly where a song should be. Emptiness only emptiness can see. Let this be my prayer. Does anything belong to me? So especially when we're up against the magnitude of tragedies like we've experienced in the last few days.
Yes.
It's kind of the only prayer I have sometimes, and you have to approach it like.
I think I just lost you. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. It started fading in. I think somebody started calling you or something.
Oh, no. But yeah, well, at least when I'm writing a poem, I have to approach it without an agenda, and I think that's how we should also approach our most heartfelt prayers. That we may have hopes, but we're here to listen and to be emptied even.
Yes. Well, three of the areas where I hear God the strongest in my own life is poets, mystics, and musicians. Because I think that those are the strongest expressions of God. I mean, most of us sense God when we're in nature and such, but only the good poet, and this is my opinion only, but I'm right, is that only the good poet can really express what we're trying to express through our hearts. You're able to put into words in the poem, and I think it's a prophetic art that doesn't get nearly enough attention.
Yeah. And ironically, I think it's because poets know that words aren't enough.
Right.
They're never enough, and somehow, even though that's our medium, we're looking beyond the words always, trying to, because it's in the ineffable that God is in mystery really resides.
Yes. I can remember when I was working on my book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. When I first started, I did not realize I was writing a book. I was just having conversations with God, so to speak, and I was writing down what was coming out of my meditations. And do you sometimes have that experience when you are doing the poetry that you write?
Yes, I feel like if you know what your poem or your book or your essay is about before you start to write it, you have left no space for discovery, kind of like a prayer. If you go into a prayer thinking you know what the end result is, you're not praying. It's not a conversation. And often I'm given a title or a first line or a last line, and I have no idea where it's going or if it's any good or how deep that well really goes. Even the other day I came home with a burning desire to write an essay. And I haven't written an essay or had a desire to write one in, except for school in a long time, but you kind of never know what's waiting for you, but the task is to be creatively available.
Oh, my goodness. You just gave me an answer to something. I'm working on a second book right now, and I've had writer's block for some time now, and you just told me what I'm doing wrong. I'm sitting down with an objective, and when I wrote Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me, I had no objective. And
Right.
So you're my angel right now, and Gabby's sitting across the studio from me, giving me to look at. She says I had better say hello and send her love to you. She absolutely adores you.
Oh, we love her too.
Alex says she loves you too. She doesn't have headphones on right now. It's the only way I can get away with anything is if she doesn't hear it. But she's giving me the look that I'm going to hear it. So, you're such a joy to talk to always, and I've appreciated when we've gotten to work together over at St. Paul's, and you bring so much to the table, and you're taking the time tonight because I know you're on your way to New York, and that's really a kind thing to do. Now, if I may ask something personal that's not my business, which has never stopped me, what are you doing in New York?
I'm visiting a friend.
Ah.
One of my best friends we go back to 6th grade.
Wow.
And our friendship consisted largely of sitting in coffee shops and reading and writing together. So I think that's what we'll be doing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I've always wanted to go to New York. I haven't done it yet. It's one of the few states I haven't been to.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's magical for writers.
Well, I'm always afraid if I leave California, they won't let me back in.
Well.
That's. And how's Mark doing?
He's fantastic. He's good. He's going to be hanging out with a friend in the desert this weekend.
For those of you who don't know who Mark is, I just referred to, it is Alex's delightful husband, a man I'm very fond of, and he just really a good man. And Mickey's doing well?
Mickey's great. He's enjoying his little kingdom of our backyard.
That's great. That's great. Well, I really want to thank you for being on. And do you have any books coming out that you would like to recommend to us?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't currently. I am working on a book for chaplains and priests and spiritual directors to use a book of prompts, poetry prompts. So I'm hoping to have that out within, honestly, probably it'll be a couple of years, but that's my next project.
Well, when it does come out, I don't want it to be that long before the next time we do something together, but when you do, I hope you'll be back on the show and share it with us because I know my listeners would really benefit from it. I've always benefited every time you and I have spoken, and I just think the world of you, and I think chaplaincy is going to be even better because you're involved with it, and you bring so much to the table, and thank you for all the service you do with all these great organizations. There are people who sit by the sidelines, and you're not one of them. You are right in the thick of it, and one of my heroes. And so I'll let you get to New York, and thank you for taking the time to be with us, and give my love to your family, and we'll certainly talk soon. And be sure to give Father Mark a bad time on my behalf.
I will. Thank you so much, Father John. This has been
Thank you. And that was Alex Donovan, and on the other side of the break, I'm going to share with you a favorite poem of mine.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org, www.4pfp as in personalfuneralplanning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
How would you like to have a large portion of your credit card debt completely forgiven, both the principal and interest? National Credit Card Relief wants to give you free information that shows you how. Thousands of people have used this program to have their credit card debt forgiven. So call now for free information and consultation. We'll give you the secret to this money-saving program absolutely free. Get eye-opening information that could save you thousands of dollars a year or a month, depending on how much you owe. In fact, the more you owe, the more you can save. All you need is $10,000 or more in credit debt, medical bills, or department store debt to qualify. Call for free debt forgiveness information now at 800-546-2909. That's 800-546-2909 to discover the secret to having your credit card debt forgiven. Call 800-546-2909. 800-546-2909. Don't wait. Call now. 800-546-2909.
What if I told you you'd never have to make a house payment again? What if you could pay off much-needed home repairs and even create an income stream based on the value of your home? If you're 62 years old or older, you could be eligible for a reverse mortgage. Call Tim Harrison and find out if a reverse mortgage is right for you. Call Tim at 800-566-2475. That's 800-566-2475. Tim Harrison, branch manager, NMLS number 170960. Broadview Mortgage Corporation is licensed by the Department of Business Oversight under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. License number 170952. Registered with the Nationwide Mortgage Licensing System and registry number 813B544. Broadview Mortgage, equal housing lender. Remember, if you never want to make a house payment again, except for property taxes, maintenance, and insurance, that's 800-566-2475. That's 800-566-2475.
And welcome back. You are tuned to KCAA Radio in Redlands, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, and on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. And again, you can follow us on Facebook at Viewpoint with Father John. And I'm your host, Father John Reed. Again, that was wonderful. My friend Alex Donovan, she's such a talented writer and teacher and retreat facilitator. I really hope that you will Google her and that you will follow some of the stuff she does. It will really enhance your spiritual life. She's just good people. Speaking of good people, I want to give a shout out to the best pharmacist in the Southern California area, Nikki Ho, over at Claremont Pharmacy in the beautiful city of Claremont on the corner of Indian Hill and Arrow Highway. I'll tell you what, since you started taking care of my medicine, my numbers have been great on my A1C. She takes care of all my diabetic needs. And I'll tell you what, she's another one of my heroes. So if you go over there, tell her Father John sent you, and you'll be really happy that you went to her pharmacy and not just some big chain. Before the break, I said I was going to share with you one of my favorite poems, and this comes from one of my heroes, Meister Eckhart, who is a mystic in the Christian faith. And this poem is called Love Does That. All day long, a little burro labors, sometimes with heavy loads on her back, and sometimes with just worries about things that bother only burros. And worries, as we know, can be more exhausting than physical labor. Once in a while, a monk comes to her stable and brings a pear. But more than that, he looks into the burro's eyes and touches her ears, and for a few seconds the burro is free, and even seems to laugh. Because love does that. Love frees. And I love that poem because right now, with all the stuff going on in our country, we need a little bit of love. We need to stop. We need to look into each other's eyes. We need to reach out and touch. And we need to be reminded we're in this together. This isn't something we should be doing on our own. And we've become perfect strangers. I want to ask you a question, and if you want to answer, you could certainly call it 1-909-972-5222 if you feel so inclined, and you can join in this conversation. But I want to ask you, how many of your neighbors do you know their name? How many of your neighbors have you stopped and had a conversation with? Do you know what their hurts are, what their joys are, what they might be walking through? See, we've become so isolated in this community, we have forgotten that our neighbor is a part of our extended family. And we've forgotten that what's important to one of us should be important to all of us. And particularly those of us who claim to follow Christ Jesus, who taught us to love one another. He said, in fact, they will know you're my disciples by how you love one another. And he says, no greater thing can one do than these. Lay down your life for your friends. Well, that coach did that this week. He laid down his life for his friends. But more importantly, take a little time to listen to one another, to share each other's pain, to share each other's joy. Talk to a stranger. It's amazing what we find out about people that we would never know. And, some people think I'm a little crazy, and they might be right. But I like stopping people on the street and talking to them. Or if I'm sitting in a restaurant, I've met some really interesting people sitting in restaurants where I just turned around from my booth to theirs and said hello. One guy turned out to be a great friend, Chris Rubel, and we were at the Village Grill in Claremont. That's one of the hangouts there, and I noticed he was wearing a Coptic cross, and I thought that was very interesting, being Eastern Orthodox myself, so I stopped to talk to him. Turned out he was a retired Episcopalian priest and a retired psychotherapist, and so we had a lot in common because, although I'm not retired from the priesthood, some people think I should be, and I do a lot of counseling work. And he turned out to be a fascinating guy, and we wound up being really good friends, and that would have never happened if I was so busy just minding my own business and I didn't turn around and ask him about the cross he was wearing. In fact, that day he was very excited because he and some other clergy were going to a Coptic parish over in Covina for a personal tour and a history lesson from the priest there. So take time to get to know the people in your community. That's why it's called a community. Hillary Clinton said that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, folks, we're that village. And I don't, where you like Hillary or not like Hillary, that's not the point. Don't turn this into something political. The fact is, our kids need us right now. Our adults need us right now. We need us right now. And if we don't step up to the plate, if we wait for other people to do it, it won't get done. I'm reminded of a story a friend of mine, Sam Gates, used to tell me. And he talked about this guy who every day he'd go in his backyard and he'd have conversations with God. And on this particular day, he says to God, there's all this pain in the world. People are killing each other. People are hungry. There's injustice. There's too much of a gap between the rich and the poor. You're God. Why don't you do something? Well, God was quiet that entire day and didn't have anything to say that night. Well, the next day, this guy goes into his backyard for his conversation with God, and God said, I did do something. I made you. We have to become part of the solution, because the answer's in the answer. It's not in the problem. We see the problem everywhere. We have to get into the answer. And what is that answer? That answer is for us to stand up and say, no more. I will be counted, and I will reach out. I won't wait for their hand to come to me. I will stretch my hand out to them. I will be the one to bring peace. One of my favorite songs growing up is a song that many of you know. You've heard it in your churches. It says, let there be peace on earth, and let it begins with me. And one of the lines in there says, for God is our Father, brothers and sisters all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Well, we have that opportunity. Instead of fighting the politics, instead of saying I'm right, you're wrong, let's come together. Let's share in some of this love. Let's do what this poem talks about. And just take some time to hear each other's burdens. What's it going to cost you? Nothing. I was told that, if you really want to have a spiritual experience, do something good for somebody and don't get caught. Because if you get caught, it doesn't count. And so if you really follow this program, that's your homework this week. Do something nice for somebody and don't get caught doing it. Just do it out of love. Just do it so that they can know that somebody cared without having to know who it was that cared. Because we are, as Mother Teresa said, the only hands that Jesus has. We are that body of Christ. And the body that we make up has arms, and we are those arms, and those arms are for embracing. They're not for harming. They're not for hurting each other. And they're not just for hugging people in our community. They're for hugging people of all communities, of all different religions, of all different points of view. You know, I really believe that the people who listen to this show really want to go a different route than what the tradition has been of we're right and they're wrong. That you think a little bit higher than that. That you're really looking to get some light and not just hang out in the shadows. So let's be part of that light. You know, I was taught that when you light a candle in a dark room, it begins the illumination process. And then you light a second candle. And a second candle doesn't take from the light of the first candle, it joins with it and makes the room a little brighter, illuminates it even more. And the same with the third candle and the fourth candle. And so we can all be these points of light, and we join together and make the world a brighter place. And we don't have to worry about each other's shadow. We enjoy the light together. That's what we're put here to do. We're supposed to be the expression of God. You know, when God made the universe and he finally got around to man, he didn't just say it was good, he said it was tov, which means very good. This is the very best I have done. And so let's start acting like that. Let's do that with people. Let's be good to each other for free and for fun. Not have any strings attached. You know, during this time of Lent, it's a restart time. It's a time where we get new life. But we can only get that new life if we're willing to let go of some of the old life. If we're willing to have a new experience. And I hope you're going to do that. Otherwise, it's just, you know, another Lent season. And it means no more than the lint in the dryer. But if you really get into what this is about real psychic change, about real change of vision, this could be a holy season for you. And I don't care if you eat meat on Friday or not. Really, first of all, it's none of my business. And, you know, chances are I will be too. And now, that, you know, it reminds me of an old joke that's terrible, and I'm probably going to get some letters for this, but that's never stopped me before. But I'm reminded of a Jewish guy who moved into a Catholic neighborhood, and it happened to be Lent season. And every Friday, he'd be barbecuing a steak, and his Catholic neighbors were just going crazy because they're having fish, and they weren't too happy about, you know, smelling this steak while they're having to have fish. And especially since they wanted the steak so bad. And so finally all the neighbors went over to him and said, look, you're a nice kid, we like you. However, these steaks on Friday is killing us. We got to have this fish, and so you either got to convert or you got to move, because this isn't going to work every Friday when we're having our fish smelling your delicious steak. So he's a nice kid. He says, you know, I like the neighborhood, you're nice people, I convert. So they take him to the local Catholic church, and they hook him up with the priest, and the priest baptizes him and sprinkles him with holy water and says, now you are Catholic, you're no longer Jewish. He says, oh, very good, very good. Well, the next Friday comes around, and sure enough, they smell the steak all over again. They can't believe it. And they look over the fence, and here's this young guy with a bottle of holy water, and he's sprinkling the steak saying, you are fish, you're not steak. So we can argue about who's right. We can try to convert each other to our different points of view, or we can learn to appreciate each other right where we are. And we can just learn to love people just as they are, and not say what I believe is right and what you believe is wrong, but instead let's learn about what each other believe. Next week we're going to have a little chance to do that. I have a good friend of mine who's from the Muslim community, and he's going to come and share with us about what do they really believe, because unfortunately we have a lot of propaganda that doesn't do justice, because we're so busy teaching people to fear other religions. And St. Francis of Assisi said to his friars, if when you are walking you find even a piece of the Quran, You are to pick it up. You are to kiss it. And you are to place it on the altar, because it too is a search for God. And that's the kind of respect we try to have on this program, is that each one of us are searching for God in our own way. Some of us in following Christ Jesus, some through our Hebrew brothers and sisters, some through the Buddhist religions, some through the Hindu religion. But we're all looking for this thing we call God. And before you say it's the God, you might want to look up what the word God means. The definition of that word is that which cannot be described in words. And so we share our experiences with each other. We learn from each other. I read parts of the Quran. I tried to read the whole thing, and I got through a good part of it. And I got onto another book, the Bhagavad Gita, and I got through that one. And I love reading religious material from different faiths. And you know what? They're all holy books. They're all holy books, not just one of them. We make a mistake when we say we have the only holy writing. That's our limitation, not God's limitation. And the very idea to say that God could only express God's self one way, that's heresy. That's heresy. That's saying God is not as powerful as we would have you believe. That God could only come through one writing. I've read many books that I've known have been divinely inspired. When you read certain poetry, how could you not? Read the writings of Rumi. How could that not be inspired? Or Khalil Gibran, how could that not be inspired? I mean, for heaven's sake. Even some of the writings of people who write for Hollywood. Look at Victor Hugo. One of my favorite lines from Les Miserables, Jean Valjean saying, "To love another person is to see the face of God." How can that not be holy? It's all holy. Where we get in trouble is when we refuse to see the holiness in it. That's where we refuse to see God. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to, when my time comes, I don't want to say, you know, I just thought I could only see you in one place. I really think that God's going to ask me a couple questions when my time comes. One is he's going to say, did you learn to love? And I hope my answer is yes. And the other one, I think he's going to ask, did you learn to have fun? Because we're supposed to have fun here too. And did you learn to see me in the eyes of the other? Because if you did, then you did walk the spiritual path. Well, friends, we've come up to the end of another hour. I want to thank you for spending this time with me. I want to thank my incredibly talented board operator, Carlos. He's the greatest sound engineer in the Inland Empire, and he always takes good care of me. I want to thank my beloved wife for getting me here, and she's just a trooper. She is back from Mexico. I can't tell you how thrilled I am. I missed her greatly, and for the record, I kept the house clean, and I did the dishes, and she'll vouch for that. And so that means tonight I don't have to sleep on the couch, and I'm very happy for that. So if no one told you this week that they love you, let me be the first. And I look forward to us spending time again next week. God bless.